Welcome to Unleash the Awesome with Dave Gambrill. All of us have unique skills, talents, and abilities that aren't being used to their full potential. Our mission is to share the people, tools, apps, and other resources that will help you unleash your awesome on the world.
Yo, what's up? It's Dave. Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Awesome. Today, let's talk about success is boring. Yeah, success is boring. And before you tune out, before you jump to another podcast and say, Dave has lost his mind, hear me out for a second. I'm not talking about the pursuit of success or the actual achievement of success. Those are amazing and awesome. And oftentimes those are the things that power us through, right? We get a small win, we get some momentum, and we keep going. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is actually getting to success. Being successful is boring in that it's usually just a few key things, processes, protocols, systems, frameworks that are executed time and time and time again with better and better results because you practice and you look at what you're doing. And if you listen to my early episode of this podcast called the OODA loop, right? You observe, orient, decide, and act. You take action, you see what happened, and then you try to improve, and then you do it again, and then you take action. And I was reminded of this quote from Bruce Lee, who said, "I fear not the man who practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Again, that's from Bruce Lee. And so I was thinking about this actually, and you're probably sick of hearing me talk about this, but on my health and fitness journey, I'm right at the tail end of a 90-day training cycle for some strength training and conditioning. And I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do next? And I've had some success with this thing, and I've actually had a lot of success with it. But I was looking at, what are some other things I'm going to do? What I'm going to do when this is over? What am I going to change up? And I thought to myself, like, wait a second, why would you change anything? This got you success. Why don't you just go back to day one and start over with the program and the protocol? You still will have increased weights, right? I've seen some success and some progression and muscle hypertrophy and other stuff. So I can do higher weights at some of the exercises that I did 90 days ago. But why not just go through the cycle again? Yeah, it'll be boring because you've done it all before and you know how to do it. And yeah, I get it. If you're a fitness professional, you'll probably say, yeah, but you'll be at danger of plateauing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get that. But the way this program was set up, the way the exercises were done, and sometimes when I do supersets and other stuff, it's hard for me to get bored and it's hard for me to plateau because just the way that things were done. And there is some selection and choice each week in the exercises. So I can decide to do lat pull downs instead of pull-ups, for example. So I decided I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to do that program again. I'm just going to go right back to day one and do it all over. Is it going to be boring? Yeah, because I already know how to do it. But it got me success. I think about the same thing when you look at businesses, right? I worked for a software company one time that their entire sales process was so thinly sliced, meaning there was a group of people that had a very specific role in a very specific thin slice of the sales and marketing process. So they didn't control the whole sales and marketing process. It was just this really thin slice. And so there were people that did demand generation and lead capture, and then lead outreach and lead follow-up and automated lead follow-up and like cold call type things and all of this stuff, right? And then they had people that would do demos, and those people were different from the people that would actually sell them the programs, right? And if you look at what each person in that process did, they did the same thing over and over every single day, probably hundreds of times in some cases. But while I was there looking at the track record of the company and the earnings, they went from doing short of $100 million a year recurring revenue to then hitting $1 million recurring revenue and then going to $200 and $300 and $400 of annual recurring revenue, doing the same thing with the same people in the same process. Now, if something didn't work, obviously they changed it. They tweaked it a little bit. Sometimes they did some stuff and it wasn't great, but they took the risk and they realized, okay, that wasn't working. Let's just go back to what works. Let's go back to the basics. If you look at sports, you'll see a similar thing. Teams that tend to struggle, they tend to get a little too fancy. They tend to be doing some things they probably shouldn't be doing. And you'll hear the coach say, we're just getting back to basics. We're getting back to the fundamentals. In football, they'll say, we need to focus on blocking and tackling. right? If we can't block people, we can't run the ball, or we can't give our quarterback enough time to throw it. If we can't tackle, then the other team is just going to score every time they throw a pass or they run or whatever, right? We need to get back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the fundamentals, right? And Jim Rohn has one of my favorite quotes of all time. I know I quote him a lot on this podcast. He says, "Beware of the man who claims to manufacture antiques." Beware of the person who claims to manufacture antiques, meaning you're not going to create something new and crazy. Like, it's usually just a new package. Even if you look at personal development and growth and training and all that stuff, it's a lot of the same stuff that's just repackaged, because the fundamentals are the fundamentals, right? If you think about the things that it takes to be successful, mindset, skill set, tool set, in order of priority, right? Those things are those things. No matter which book you read from which person or which training or which class you go through, those things are the basics. The fundamentals are the fundamentals. I just went through a 5-day challenge with my friend Russell Brunson, where he was showing people how to build their first sales funnel online. And if you go through the whole 5-day training and then he had a bonus day training and some other stuff, there was nothing that was new in terms of the process or the systems. There were some different ways to deliver it. There were some more powerful ways to deliver it. There were some different ways to dress it up, some different ways to present it. Maybe you present it online a different way through a sales funnel. But the psychology behind the selling process and how you write long form copy or build out a sales funnel is the same. That's why he has this idea called funnel hacking, meaning look at what's already successful in your niche and then emulate a lot of that, right? Don't copy it. Don't steal intellectual property. But if a certain thing is working in a certain niche, there's a reason why people continue to do it. So instead of trying to create something new, just look at what's going on, look at that process, look at that framework and go, oh, maybe I should do something similar. Right? Where I think a lot of people get confused is I heard of this book called The Blue Ocean Strategy, right? And the premise of the book is go out and create something that is so new, so different, that you're out in a blue ocean and you don't have any competition. Now, that works really well if you have a lot of money to do marketing and you have the time for that to take place. But for a lot of people, if you're a solopreneur, a small business, a medium business, you're just getting started, you're building a personal brand, like you don't have time for that. So you don't have time to go out in a blue ocean and create all this new stuff. Why don't you look at what's already working and just do it, right? Just do it. Success is boring. It's going to be the same stuff, the same frameworks, the same processes, right? I find that the more I embrace that in pretty much anything I do, I'm successful. If you think about health and nutrition, same thing holds true. When I tend to eat the same stuff, generally over and over, like I choose from like 2, maybe 3 different things I eat for breakfast for the whole 90 days while I've been doing this thing, then I don't need to worry about choosing things. It makes it easier to go to the grocery store. I just like, oh, okay, I'm going to have this morning, or I'm going to have that this morning. I'm going to have this smoothie, or I'm going to have this oatmeal with protein, whatever. Like that's pretty much it. And I've been successful with that. It's boring as can be, right? There's not a lot of variety. I mean, maybe the variety, I was thinking about it this morning, I usually put some mixed frozen berries in my smoothies or my oatmeal. This morning, I had a different mix of berries that happened to have strawberries in it. And I was like, ooh, strawberries. Some excitement, something different. But the fundamentals were the fundamentals. It was still oatmeal with protein powder and some mixed berries, right? Because that works. Boring? Yeah. There's lots of other things I could eat for breakfast. There are days when I'd love to eat a bowl of Lucky Charms. As disgusting as that sounds to some of you, look, that's just what I would like. But that won't help me hit my goals, right? Go back to the basics, go back to the fundamentals. So I would encourage you to think about, no matter what you're looking at, what you're trying to improve in your life. Let me give you one more example. It just popped to mind. Finances and being financially successful. If you read any of the books by David Bach, The Automatic Millionaire, things like that, he's got a whole bunch of series like that. Really good book. You should read it and you should follow it. And I followed a lot of what he does. If you look at what he teaches, the basic premise, the basic foundation of what he teaches is give up 1 or 2 things that you're overspending on every day. Like instead of getting Starbucks every day, calls it the latte factor. Instead of buying a Starbucks every day for $5 to $10, make your coffee at home. If you could save on average $7 or $8 a day, making your coffee at home, then you could take that money and you could put it in a long-term retirement account and get the benefit of time compounding over 20 years. And he often says, I think his recommendations are still to put that money in an index fund, right? So a market basket of like, don't pick individual stocks, just find a mutual fund or an index fund, stick it in there and let it ride over time, right? Super boring. It's like, oh, save $5 a day and then automatically a couple times a month have that money get swept into a retirement account, and over 20, 30, 40 years, I'll have $1 million. Yeah, you will. It's the power of time compounding. Is it sexy, like picking a new stock or putting your money in cryptocurrency and trying to make money overnight? No, it is not. It's super boring. Once you set it up, it's pretty much automatic. And then every quarter, maybe you look at it and maybe you rebalance your portfolio or do some other things. Look, I'm not your financial advisor. Talk to your own financial folks to get specific stuff for you. But the reason I bring this up is super boring. Being successful like that is super boring. Now, when you have all that money and you're towards retirement age and you can do some cool stuff with it, that's exciting. That's awesome. What would suck is to get that age and not have any money because you didn't execute on the super boring thing of just putting a little bit of money away each week or each month from the time you started working until the time you retired. So now you have this giant nest egg that you can go have fun with. That would suck, right? Because you didn't do the boring things. So I'd encourage you to look at whatever you're having trouble with, wherever you're not having success, look at what you're doing. Are you trying to get too fancy? Are you trying to get too sexy? Are you trying to be a pioneer or swim out into the blue ocean and drown? Are you trying to do something that's just kind of out there versus looking at the things and the fundamentals that work inside that situation, inside that niche, whether it's health and fitness or finance or relationships or whatever? The basics are the basics and they're boring as can be. And I know when you execute on those, you will find the success you are looking for that will most definitely help you unleash your awesome on the world. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Unleash the Awesome. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share us on your favorite social media platforms using #UnleashAwesome.